Chosen one. Heaven has paused everything around you for this moment. The noise of the world has dimmed, not by chance, but by divine command. You are hearing this because heaven is speaking directly to you, whispering the words that have been long delayed but never forgotten. You have done enough. Let me take it from here. For too long, you've carried burdens meant to be surrendered. You've stood firm when the ground beneath you shook. You've fought battles no one saw, prayed prayers no one heard, and smiled through storms that nearly drowned your soul. Heaven saw every tear, every late-night question, every moment you said, "Lord, I can't do this anymore." And the answer you waited for has finally arrived, not in thunder or fire, but in stillness. Rest now. I will handle what you cannot. Avli, listen carefully. This is not coincidence. This is divine intervention. Heaven has issued a ceasefire over your striving. The battles that drained you will now be fought by angels. The doors you couldn't open are now being unlocked by unseen hands. The weight that has pressed against your chest will lift because heaven has taken notice. You see, there comes a sacred moment when your obedience is enough, when the Creator Himself steps in and says, "You have proven faithful. You have stood long enough. Now let me show you what I can do." Now, do not confuse surrender with failure. Surrender is heaven's way of saying, "Step aside and witness glory." You've done the part assigned to you. You've prayed, believed, endured. But this next part, it belongs to God alone. There are things shifting now, divine alignments moving beneath the surface of your life. People who left were meant to. Doors that closed were heaven's protection. You thought you were being delayed, but heaven was orchestrating timing. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are being positioned. You've spent years carrying a mission that felt heavier by the day. You've prayed, "Lord, when will it be my turn?" And heaven now whispers, "Now. Now is when I take over. You've done your part in the flesh. Let me finish it in the spirit." Or, even now, heaven is wrapping you in peace. The exhaustion that clings to your bones begins to lift. The anxiety that has lived rent-free in your mind begins to crumble, because God is saying, "Be still." And the Spirit of God is whispering over you, this isn't the end, it's the turning point. You are entering a season where less effort brings more results, where divine favor replaces human striving. The harvest you've been waiting for will not come by force, but by faith. Stop trying to prove your worth. Heaven already called you worthy. Stop fighting to be seen. Heaven already saw you. The validation you've been chasing cannot compare to the approval you already carry. You are a chosen vessel not because of perfection, but because of surrender. God uses those who have been broken and still choose to believe. You've walked through fire and did not burn. You've crossed through floods and did not drown. That was not by your strength. That was heaven holding you when you couldn't hold yourself. The voice of God now speaks softly, but clearly. Put it down. Let me carry it. The battle no longer belongs to you. It belongs to the Lord. Your part now is to rest, trust, and watch Him move. As the ancient words declare in the book of Isaiah, chapter 42, verse 31, "Those who hope in the Lord will renew strength. They will soar like eagles, run and not faint." Chosen one, your wings are being restored. You will rise again, not through striving, but through surrender. This is not your breaking, this is your becoming. Heaven is taking over now. And when you rise, you will not recognize the landscape around you. For everything that once wounded, you will now bow to the authority of your renewed spirit. Heaven is rearranging the pieces of your story into a masterpiece that could only be formed through divine orchestration. You are stepping into a realm where peace is your armor and grace is your language. The very storms that tried to destroy you will now announce your arrival. Every delay, every detour, every closed door will testify heaven was working all along. If this message speaks to your spirit, take a moment to like, share, and subscribe so others may hear what heaven is saying in this hour. And as an act of prophetic agreement, comment the number 777 below, a sign of divine completion and heavenly takeover. Heaven has spoken. You have done enough. Let me take it from here. You feel it even before you can explain it, the heaviness that has lived on your shoulders for so long. It has almost become part of you. The weight you've been holding is invisible to most. Yet heaven has seen every ounce of it. You've walked through days that look normal on the outside. But inside, your soul was screaming for rest. Every "I'm fine" you spoke was a prayer in disguise. There are burdens only the chosen can carry, not because you are cursed, but because you are trusted. Heaven trusted you with pain that others would have crumbled beneath. You have been a vessel shaped by pressure, molded by fire, purified by tears. And even when you thought you were breaking, you were actually being refined. Beloved, you have carried the weight of expectations, disappointment, loss, and hope all tangled together. You've watched people misunderstand your silence and misread your kindness. You've endured seasons where God felt silent. And still, you kept walking. Heaven took note of that. Not one sigh escaped without being recorded. You see, every burden you've held has been shaping your heart to recognize heaven's voice. You were never meant to carry it forever, only long enough to learn the weight of compassion, so that when God lifts it, you will understand the power of release. There are moments when you've asked, "Why me?" And heaven responds, "Because you could handle it. Not because you were the strongest, but because you were willing." The tears you cried were not wasted. They watered the soil for what is about to bloom. The loneliness you felt was heaven's classroom, teaching you to rely not on the world's validation, but on divine presence. Beloved, every burden has a voice. Some spoke lies telling you that you were behind, unworthy, forgotten. But today, those voices lose their power, because heaven is rewriting your narrative. You are not defined by the weight you carry, but by the endurance you showed while carrying it. It is a holy thing to feel deeply, to care when it costs you, to love when it hurts. Those emotions that overwhelmed you were not weaknesses, they were the fingerprints of your divine design. You were created to feel, to discern, to see beyond what is visible. Heaven gave you that sensitivity, not as a curse, but as a calling, and though your hands are trembling, they are still anointed. Though your heart has scars, it still beats with purpose. You have been chosen not despite your fragility, but because of it. The cracks in your soul are where heaven's light shines through. There is a moment, and it may be now, when you realize you no longer have to carry what doesn't belong to you, that the weight of trying to save everyone, fix everything, prove yourself, can finally be laid down. The world taught you that strength means holding on. Heaven teaches you that strength means knowing when to let go. As the prophet wrote in the scroll of Habakkuk, chapter 3, verse 19, "The Lord is my strength. He makes my feet like the deer's, enable to tread on heights." Heaven is saying, I will make you steady again. The ground that once shook beneath you will now carry you with grace. Your footing is returning. The tremors that once made you doubt your stability are ceasing. The season of staggering is over. The season of standing has begun. You've been holding pain that wasn't yours to hold, trying to heal hearts that didn't want to be healed, trying to make peace in places where peace was never meant to stay. Heaven says, release them. What you're letting go of will not fall apart. It will fall into place. The burden of control is heavy, but the freedom of trust is light. The shift is happening even now. The invisible becomes visible. The pressure turns into promise. Your tears are the currency of transformation. Heaven is exchanging your heaviness for holy peace. And when you look back, you will see that nothing was wasted. Every ache, every silent night, every unanswered question became the pathway to divine revelation. Heaven never ignored you. It was preparing you to understand what few ever do, that true strength is not the absence of pain, but the ability to remain pure through it. You have been faithful under pressure, and heaven honors that. You've walked through shadows, but never lost your light. You've bent, but never broken. Heaven saw the quiet endurance that no one applauded, and that is why the blessing coming next will not be explainable, only undeniable. There were years you thought heaven had forgotten you. The seasons stretched long prayers unanswered, doors unopened, dreams delayed. You looked around and saw others advancing while you remained still, and your heart whispered, maybe I missed my moment. But heaven was never late. Those were your hidden years, chosen 1 years, not of punishment, but of preparation. Heaven hid you not to deny you, but to develop you. Like a seed buried beneath the soil, you were covered unseen, yet growing in silence. You mistook stillness for stagnation. But in truth, the roots of your destiny were being strengthened for what's coming. The silence was not rejection, it was protection. God often conceals what he intends to reveal in glory. He allows darkness to surround his chosen ones, so that when the unveiling comes, no man can claim credit. The people who walked away, the opportunities that vanished, the prayers that seemed unanswered, they were all strategic removals. Heaven was isolating you to insulate your purpose. Beloved, the hidden years were necessary. You learned to stand without applause, to pray without reward, to believe without proof. The very seasons that broke you also built you. You didn't know it then, but while you felt unseen, heaven was speaking your name in rooms you couldn't yet enter. You were being trained in secret. Every heartbreak taught you compassion. Every disappointment sharpened your discernment. Every waiting season refined your endurance. Heaven was preparing you for a stage that requires the strength only pain can produce. You see, public glory demands private growth, and you've been growing even when you didn't see fruit. Heaven whispers now, nothing was wasted. The friendships that faded, they were pruning. The failures you feared, they were foundations. Even the silence that tormented you, it was God's classroom, because in the quiet, you learned to hear his voice without noise. As the apostle reminds us in his letter to the Corinthians, chapter 2, verse 9, No eye has seen, no ear has heard, no mind has conceived what God has prepared for those who love Him. No, the world may have overlooked you, but heaven reserved you. When others were building platforms, you were building character. When others were chasing fame, you were being filled with faith. What they achieved by effort, you will receive by favor. That's the divine difference. Do not despise the quiet years. They are the soil where greatness germinates. The anointing on your life was not formed in comfort. It was forged in pressure. And now, heaven says, the hidden years are ending. The curtain that concealed you is being lifted. What once was private will soon become public testimony. You will begin to see why the waiting was worth it. Doors that once resisted you will now recognize you. The very places that rejected you will call your name. You won't need to chase opportunities. Divine timing will summon them. Because heaven doesn't release you until the foundation is unshakable. Chosen one. You're stepping out of obscurity into visibility, but this visibility is not for vanity. It's for impact. Heaven hid you so that when you emerge, you won't be swayed by praise or wounded by criticism. You'll walk with balance, grounded in humility and anchored in purpose. When you thought nothing was happening, heaven was building your inner world, shaping your heart into a vessel that could carry destiny without leaking integrity. The waiting wasn't wasted time, it was sacred time. Now the shift begins. The doors that stayed shut for years are unlocking with ease. What was delayed is suddenly being delivered. You're moving from almost to arrived. But remember, this is not the reward for striving. It's the fruit of surrender. Heaven never forgot you. It was saving you for a divine moment that only now has arrived. Beloved, your hidden years are over. Heaven is saying, step forward. The world is ready for what I placed inside you. Everything you endured has equipped you for the season that's unfolding. You were never overlooked. You were protected until appointed. Now, type below, I am ready. None, say it not as a wish, but as a declaration. Because when you speak those words, you align your spirit with heaven's timing. You're not asking for permission to step forward. You're acknowledging that your preparation is complete. The gates are opening. The silence is breaking. The waiting is over. The hidden years were holy years. You were never alone in them. And now heaven smiles and says, you have passed the test. Rise, chosen one. Your unveiling begins now. And there comes a moment, chosen one, when strength no longer looks like fighting, it looks like surrender. You have spent so long pushing, striving, proving, and heaven is now teaching you a higher way. The next breakthrough won't come by force, but by release. The walls that effort couldn't move will crumble at the sound of surrender. You see, the world taught you that victory belongs to the strongest, but heaven whispers that victory belongs to the yielded. You thought if you tried harder, play longer, worked faster, you could make things happen. But heaven has been showing you that divine outcomes don't respond to exhaustion, they respond to alignment. When you let go, you make room for the miraculous. Surrender is not defeat, it's divine transfer. It's where your hands stop moving and heaven's hands begin. You have come to the end of yourself, and that's precisely where God begins to move. The threshold between striving and surrender is where the supernatural unfolds. The truth is, God never needed your perfection. He only needed your permission. Your willingness to say, "I can't." But you can. When you release control, heaven breathes. And suddenly, what you couldn't fix starts to shift. What you couldn't open begins to unlock. What you couldn't heal begins to mend. You have fought long enough to know that not every battle requires your sword. Some victories require your stillness. When your spirit stops wrestling with what it can't control, peace enters like a flood. That peace isn't the absence of struggle, it's the presence of divine order. Chosen one. This is where you learn that surrender doesn't make you weak, it crowns you with wisdom. There is divine intelligence in letting go. Heaven doesn't see surrender as giving up, heaven sees it as giving over. Every time you release something that wasn't meant for you, you create space for what is. You are not losing control, you are giving it to the one who holds galaxies in his palm. The same God who commands the stars to shine knows exactly how to realign your path. Every plan that fell apart wasn't a failure, it was heaven's redirection. Heaven whispers, "Stop trying to be your own savior. You were never meant to carry outcomes, you were meant to carry obedience." The fruit of surrender is always greater than the reward of striving, because when you surrender, heaven can move freely without resistance. You've learned this truth through tears. Control is a heavy burden, but surrender is a holy release. The moment you said, "God, I can't do this anymore," heaven responded. Finally, because the hands that are clenched in control cannot receive miracles. Beloved, there is peace waiting for you on the other side of letting go. You don't have to prove your worth, earn your rest, or fear what happens next. Heaven has already written the outcome. What looks uncertain to you is already complete in divine timing. Heaven doesn't need you to make things happen. It needs you to trust that they already are. The river flows best when it stops fighting the current. The eagle soars when it stops flapping and catches the wind. In the same way, you will rise when you yield to the divine flow. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Jeremiah. Chapter 29, verse 11. "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you a hope and a future." 2. Those plans still stand. Even after disappointment, even after failure, even after fear. You didn't ruin anything. What's meant for you is protected by divine decree. You could not lose it if you tried. The moment you stop striving to hold it together, you'll see heaven has been holding it all along. There is a strange beauty in surrender. It's the point where anxiety ends and faith begins. It's where you stop begging for signs, because peace itself becomes your confirmation. It's where you no longer need to understand every detail, because you've seen enough of God's character to trust His direction. You are not behind, and you have not missed your moment. Surrender realigns you instantly with divine timing. Even what seemed like years lost can be redeemed in a breath. Heaven wastes nothing, not a tear, not a prayer, not a moment of waiting. Let this truth settle deep within you. Your surrender is heaven's signal to move. The second you let go, angels are dispatched. The atmosphere around you begins to rearrange itself. What was blocked becomes blessed. What was delayed becomes delivered. And when it happens, you will realize you never had to force what was already yours. You only had to trust long enough to see it unfold. The same hands that created you are guiding you now. They will not fail. So, breathe. Loosen your grip. Exhale the worry. Let heaven take it from here. Heaven's intervention doesn't always arrive in the way you expect. Sometimes, it doesn't come through a sudden miracle, but through quiet rearrangements that shift the entire course of your story. Chosen one. This is that moment when heaven steps in silently, powerfully, deliberately. You may not see the movement yet, but the air around you is different. Something is shifting in the unseen. The angels have been dispatched. The tides are turning. What once resisted you is now bending in your favor. You have prayed long enough, fought long enough, endured long enough, and now heaven says, stand back and watch me work. When heaven intervenes, it's like dawn breaking after a long night. You don't notice the exact second the light touches the sky. You simply look up and realize the darkness is gone. That's how divine change arrives. Softly, steadily, with authority. You've done all you could, and that was enough. Now the Creator takes over. Heaven's intervention isn't about erasing your struggle, it's about redeeming it. The pieces you thought were shattered beyond repair are being gathered by unseen hands. Every tear you cried has been turned into a seed of favor. Every why you whispered in pain is becoming an answer in the light. Beloved, you are standing in the threshold between the human and the holy. You've reached the place where faith hands the pen back to God. You no longer need to make sense of the story, because the author has returned to finish his masterpiece. Sometimes, the best prayer is silence, not because you've given up, but because you've learned to trust the one who doesn't need your words to understand your heart. Heaven has heard every sigh and stored it like music in its chambers. You might not feel it yet, but heaven has already begun rearranging your circumstances. The conversation about you has already happened in divine counsel. Your name was mentioned, not in worry, but in purpose. And heaven said, now, I'm still. When divine intervention begins, it often comes disguised as endings, jobs lost, friendships fading, plan crumbling. But what looks like collapse is often construction. God doesn't destroy what you need. He removes what blocks what's next. Every closed door is not punishment, but preservation. Every delay is divine choreography. The voice of God thundered in the book of Exodus, chapter 14, verse 14. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. That stillness is your weapon now. It is not passivity, it is posture. You're not retreating, you're resting under divine command. Heaven has taken the lead, and the victory is already written. You simply align yourself with peace. Think of a bird that stops flapping and catches the wind. The bird doesn't lose altitude by resting, it rises higher by trusting the current. That's you now. Heaven's wind is carrying you. You only need to stretch your wings of faith and allow the upward current of grace to lift you. There's something sacred about recognizing the limits of your strength. It's there that divine power shows its perfection. Heaven doesn't need your perfection, only your permission to move. And now that you've yielded, heaven is responding. Maybe you're listening to this and thinking, but I've failed too many times. Beloved, heaven never counts you out. Every fall became a lesson. Every mistake became material for mercy. The potter never throws away the clay, he reshapes it. And you are being reshaped right now into something stronger, purer, more radiant. You are part of something bigger. Every word you hear, every spark of hope that reignites within you, It's all part of heaven's network of miracles. And just as rivers flow together to form oceans, we, too, move as one in this divine stream. That's why, if this message touches your spirit, I invite you not out of duty, but out of shared purpose to like, share, and subscribe. Each time you do, it's as if you're releasing a ripple of light into the digital sea, allowing heaven's words to reach another weary soul who needs to remember that they are not forgotten. And if your heart feels led, you may even sow into this message, not as payment, but as partnership. When you give, you plant a seed into the soil of faith that keeps these streams flowing to others who are crying out for hope in the dark. Your gift, however small, becomes a candle in someone else's midnight. Beloved, remember, when heaven intervenes, it doesn't announce itself with thunder. It moves like wind through trees. Unseen, yet undeniable. You will begin to notice subtle shifts, the phone call, the unexpected opportunity, the peace that replaces panic. That's how you'll know heaven has taken the reins. You don't have to chase it. You don't have to beg for it. You just need to remain still enough to see it unfold. The divine is closer than your next breath. The breakthrough you've waited for is already in motion. The battle is no longer yours. Heaven has stepped in. All that's left for you is to trust the process. Keep your heart open and stay in the flow of faith. Because the moment you released control, heaven began to move mountains. In the stillness that follows surrender, something sacred begins to awaken within you. The noise fades, the striving ceases, and in that quiet space, heaven speaks. You've spent so long trying to hear God in the thunder, in the chaos, in the crowd. But heaven's voice doesn't shout, it whispers. And now, for the first time in a long while, you are still enough to hear it. Chosen one. The voice you're hearing is not imagination, it is revelation. Heaven speaks not in the language of volume, but of vibration. It moves through peace, through gentle knowing, through sudden calm in the middle of confusion, that soft stirring in your chest, that inner warmth that brings tears to your eyes for no reason. That's the language of heaven. Heaven has been waiting for this silence. The angels lean in close when the world goes quiet around you. This is where alignment happens. This is where divine instruction is whispered. You are entering a moment of supernatural clarity, where God is no longer a distant echo, but an intimate presence. Sometimes heaven speaks in scripture, sometimes through dreams, sometimes through people who appear at just the right time, and other times, heaven speaks in silence, trusting that your spirit knows the frequency of its voice. You may not always hear words, but you will always sense peace. Heaven speaks clearly through the words in Deuteronomy, chapter 30, verse 14. The word is very near you. It is in your mouth and in your heart, so you may obey it. Do you see it? Chosen one, the voice you seek is already inside you. Heaven doesn't need to travel across galaxies to reach you. The word has always lived within you, waiting for your attention. When you listen inwardly with faith, you hear the outward echo of heaven's will. In this stillness, heaven begins to remind you of things you forgot, promises you once believed but buried under fatigue. You'll remember who you are, what you carry, and what you're called to do. The fog begins to lift, and clarity dawns like sunlight through clouds. It's not always what you expect to hear. Sometimes heaven says, "Wait." And your flesh trembles because waiting feels like doing nothing. But heaven's wait is not denial, it's timing. The pause between prayer and promise is where faith matures. Other times heaven says, "Move." And though fear whispers, "Not yet," your spirit knows that obedience always opens the next door. The instruction may seem small. Send a message. Make that call. Forgive that person. Walk away from that thing, but every small act of obedience becomes a bridge to your breakthrough. Heaven is teaching you to trust the whisper more than the whirlwind. To stop chasing confirmation from people when peace itself is the confirmation. The same God who spoke galaxies into existence is speaking into your life with precision and care. Listen closely. Heaven doesn't speak to impress you, it speaks to prepare you. You are being prepared right now for divine assignments that require clear hearing. What you cultivate in this silence will sustain you in the noise of future seasons. Sometimes the silence is long because heaven is letting your roots grow deep. The fruit will come later, but the depth must come first. You are being fortified in the unseen. This quiet moment is not wasted, it is sacred construction. The next instruction from heaven may not make sense to the natural mind, but it will bring peace to your spirit. Follow peace. It will never lead you wrong. When you act from peace, you move with heaven's rhythm. Beloved, you are hearing right. You are not imagining it. The sense of release, the calm that follows prayer, the way your heart feels lighter, that's not coincidence. That's heaven confirming that it has heard you, that it is moving for you, that you are exactly where you need to be. Heaven speaks once, but echoes until you understand. The same message will come through different forms, a verse, a dream, a phrase someone says in passing. Pay attention. The divine is always speaking. Awareness is the key to hearing. So, as you sit in this sacred silence, let your spirit say, "Speak, Lord, I am listening," and heaven will. The instruction will come, perhaps not in thunder, but in peace. Now, as a sign of alignment and listening hearts joined across the earth, type below 555. This number marks grace multiplied, divine communication awakening within you. When you comment it, you're not performing a ritual. You're responding to heaven's whisper saying, "I hear you, and I'm ready." Every chosen one eventually reaches what heaven calls the breaking point of grace. It's the moment where the weight becomes unbearable, yet somehow you don't collapse. The moment when everything you've built seems to crumble, but something invisible holds you upright. That something is grace, not the gentle kind you read about, but the fierce, rescuing kind that finds you when you've reached the end of yourself. You've known exhaustion before, but this time it feels different. It's not just your body that's tired, it's your soul. You've poured out, given, loved, served, prayed, and waited, until even hope began to flicker. But heaven has been watching closely, waiting for this exact moment, because it's here, at your limit, that grace does its greatest work. Grace doesn't arrive while you're still trying to hold everything together. It steps in when your hands are shaking, when your strength is gone, when your plans have failed. Grace is heaven's answer to human impossibility. It doesn't need your perfection. It needs your permission to move through your surrender. Beloved, don't resist the breaking. Breaking isn't punishment, it's purification. Heaven allows pressure to reveal purity. The cracks that appear are not signs of weakness, but channels through which divine strength flows. What you call shattered, heaven calls sacredly open. You have spent much of your life surviving storms. But grace doesn't just rescue, it rebuilds. It enters the ruins of your heart and begins restoring what you thought was beyond repair. The walls of fear, shame, and regret are coming down, brick by brick, replaced by peace and renewed identity. Grace moves differently. It doesn't announce itself. It arrives quietly. In moments that seem ordinary, a conversation that softens your heart, a sunrise that speaks without words, a sudden moment of peace after a night of tears. That's how heaven mends you, not with force, but with gentleness that disarms pain. We are reminded through the writings of David in the Psalms, chapter 34, verse 18, "The Lord is close to the broken-hearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." You see, heaven doesn't despise your breaking. It draws closer because of it. In the human world, broken things lose their value. In heaven's economy, brokenness increases worth. The more shattered your heart, the more space for grace to dwell. You have been carrying wounds too long, some from others, some self-inflicted, some simply from the weight of existence. And yet, heaven has been preparing healing, not in a single miraculous moment, but through a process that rewires how you see yourself. You are not a victim of your past. You are a vessel of its transformation. The breaking point of grace doesn't destroy you. It destroys the illusion that you ever had to do it alone. You realize, suddenly, that the God who called you never expected you to carry your destiny in your own strength. The yoke was always meant to be shared. The burden was always meant to be lifted. Even now, something inside you is beginning to shift. The tension in your chest starts to loosen. The fear that once screamed in your mind has gone quiet. That is grace moving. It doesn't need an announcement. It just is. You breathe, and the air feels lighter. You look at the same situation, but you feel different. That's heaven's hand resting on your spirit, saying, "I'm here." Learned, grace is the language of divine rescue. It doesn't erase your story, it redeems it. Every dark chapter will serve a purpose. Every scar will become a sentence in someone else's survival manual. You are being rewritten, not as the one who barely made it, but as the one who rose because grace refused to let you fall. Chosen one. The breaking point of grace is not meant to destroy you, but to redefine you. You will emerge from this with a tenderness that terrifies darkness. You will speak softly, yet your words will carry fire. You will walk lightly, yet your steps will shake strongholds. Heaven doesn't just patch you up, it rebuilds you stronger, softer, and surer. You will not return to who you were before this breaking, because that version of you could not carry the glory that is coming. So let the tears fall if they must. Let the silence linger if it will. The breaking is not your undoing, it is heaven's rebuilding. When the clay is pressed hardest, the potter's hands are closest. Grace is near. Beloved, it's wrapping itself around your exhaustion, whispering strength into your surrender. You may not feel powerful right now, but power is being born in you. The storm is not evidence of abandonment, it's proof of transformation. Soon, you'll look back on this breaking point and say, That was where everything began to change. And there comes a sacred exchange. Chosen one, a moment where heaven offers you peace in place of pain, calm in place of chaos, and stillness where storms once lived. You have been carrying so much for so long that you forgot what it feels like to simply breathe without the weight of worry. But heaven is here now, hands extended, ready to make the trade, your burden for its peace. This is the divine exchange of burdens. It doesn't happen through effort, but through surrender. Heaven does not demand perfection in return. It only asks for honesty. To say, God, I can't carry this anymore, is not weakness, it's worship. Because that sentence acknowledges what heaven has known all along. You were never meant to carry it alone. Every weight you've held, the disappointment, the grief, the constant need to hold everyone together, it has shaped you. But it was never meant to stay. You've been like a soldier who forgot to rest after the war ended. The battle is over, yet you still walk like you're in it. Heaven says, lay down your armor. You are safe now. You've mistaken endurance for obligation. You thought that if you stopped carrying the pain, you'd be betraying your strength. But that's not truth. That's trauma speaking. Strength isn't in how long you can hold on. It's in how deeply you can trust when you let go. Heaven wants to show you that rest is not laziness. It's divine partnership. The Word of God declares in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 11, verse 28, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." This is not poetic comfort, it's a divine command. Heaven doesn't suggest rest, it insists on it. Because when you rest, you align with creation's rhythm. Even the earth has seasons of stillness. Even the sea withdraws before the next wave. The same spirit that spoke worlds into existence is inviting you to exhale. There is something holy about rest. It's not the absence of motion, it's the presence of trust. When you release what's been crushing you, you give heaven permission to hold you upright. Rest doesn't mean the work is done, it means heaven has taken over the weight of it. Picture this, a child holding a stone too heavy for its small hands. The moment the parent reaches down and takes it, the child doesn't lose strength, it gains freedom. That's what heaven is doing with you now. The stone, you've carried the heartbreak, the fear, the disappointment is being lifted. You can almost feel the air around you, changing as the load is exchanged for peace. Peace doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it comes quietly, settling into your spirit like soft rain on dry soil. You suddenly realize the anxiety that once ruled your thoughts has loosened its grip. You breathe, and your breath doesn't catch in pain anymore. That's not luck. That's the divine transaction taking place. Heaven is not asking you to pretend the burden never existed. It's asking you to trust that you don't have to carry it into the next season. You can love people and still release what's beyond your control. You can remember what happened without reliving the hurt. You can honor your past without being imprisoned by it. This exchange isn't about forgetting, it's about freedom. Heaven doesn't erase memories, it redeems them. The moments that once brought pain will one day bring perspective. You'll see how the burden became a bridge, how the suffering carved space in you for deeper compassion. You're being taught that peace is not passive. It is power under divine authority. When you choose peace, you're declaring, I trust that heaven will handle what my hands cannot. That's the kind of strength that confuses darkness, the calm that can't be shaken, because it's anchored in the eternal. Beloved, you don't have to keep dragging yesterday into today. The heaviness you feel isn't punishment. It's the signal that it's time to release. Let heaven carry what's breaking you. You are stepping into a season where your spirit is lighter, your heart steadier, your soul restored. The divine exchange is happening even as you read these words. The burden you lay down becomes the seed heaven uses to grow peace in your life. You don't have to fight for it. You simply receive it. So breathe again. Let your shoulders drop. The war within you is over. Heaven has taken your burden and placed peace in its place. You are free to walk lighter, love deeper, and live fully again. Chosen one. Heaven is pressing the divine reset. You've been walking roads that once served you but no longer fit your feet. The path you've known, the striving, the overthinking, the constant fixing is being erased so that a new direction can emerge. What felt like confusion is actually reconfiguration. Heaven is not punishing you, it's resetting you. When heaven resets, it doesn't simply remove what's broken, it restores what's essential. Think of it like a musician tuning an instrument before a new song. You've been producing sound, but now heaven is fine-tuning your frequency to match divine harmony. The delay, the silence, the discomfort, it's the sound of strings being tightened for your next melody. This is the mercy of heaven before it promotes you. It purifies your rhythm. It removes the noise of fear, the clutter of false expectations, and the echoes of old pain. You may not realize it, but you've outgrown the old version of yourself. Heaven knows it, even if you don't yet. It's uncomfortable because reset feels like loss. You look around and see doors closing, people drifting, plans dissolving, and you wonder if you did something wrong. But heaven says, no, beloved, I'm clearing what cannot come with you. Some blessings only bloom on fresh soil. The pruning is not punishment, it's preparation. You were never meant to stay in the same season forever. Growth requires release. The divine reset breaks patterns that kept you small. The cycles of striving, exhaustion, and emotional survival are ending. The same God who guided you through the wilderness is now leading you into wide spaces. The ancient words recorded in Romans, chapter 8, verse 28, declare, we know that, in all things, God works good for those who love Him, called by His purpose. Even your mistakes are being rewritten into meaning. Nothing you've lived is wasted. Heaven is the master of repurposing pain. Every setback becomes a setup. Every detour, a doorway. The divine reset turns failure into foundation. You might feel like everything is being stripped away. But look closer. What's truly happening is refinement. You are being separated from what no longer reflects your essence. Like gold in fire, you are shedding impurities to reveal brilliance. The fire isn't destroying you, it's defining you. Heaven resets when the old patterns can no longer carry the new assignment. The thoughts that used to comfort you now convict you. The habits that once protected you now restrict you. That's how you know the transition has begun. Grace no longer fits inside the cages that once felt safe. Don't fight the unfamiliar. The unknown is not your enemy. It's the womb of your next chapter. The reset requires stillness. But soon, movement will come. Right now, heaven is aligning resources, relationships, and timing in your favor. The pieces that felt scattered will click into place suddenly, the same way dawn follows darkness. Order will follow chaos. You are learning to live from a new rhythm, one guided by trust rather than tension. The old survival patterns are dissolving. You will no longer chase what is meant to find you. You will no longer overthink what heaven has already decided. Your only task now is to stay available for divine instruction. Think of this moment as a holy reboot. When a system resets, it shuts down temporarily so that new code can install. That's you now. Heaven is rewriting your internal programming from fear to faith, from doubt to destiny, from striving to surrender. You will emerge refreshed, renewed, and ready. Chosen one. You are not behind schedule. You are right on time. Every step, even the painful ones, led you here. Heaven has not forgotten the promise. It's fulfilling it differently than you expected. Trust that difference. The divine reset rarely looks beautiful in process, but it produces beauty that lasts. You're about to notice small shifts, a new peace in your thoughts, new opportunities that align without effort, new strength rising where exhaustion once lived. That's how you'll know heaven's hand is moving. Now, as a prophetic declaration of alignment with heaven's new rhythm, type below, I receive restoration. Labele. Let that short phrase be your yes to the reset. When you write it, you're not just commenting, you're agreeing. You're saying, I choose to let go of the old pattern. I choose to trust the divine timeline. Words carry energy, and agreement activates destiny. This is your reset moment. Chosen one. Heaven is not asking you to rebuild the old. It's inviting you to step into the new. The ground beneath you is sacred again, cleansed by surrender, blessed by grace. What once felt uncertain is now holy ground. Breathe. The old cycle has ended. Heaven's reset has begun. There is a holy power in letting go. Chosen one, a sacred release that shifts the atmosphere around you. When you unclench your fists, heaven fills your open hands. When you stop gripping the pieces, God reveals the pattern. Letting go isn't loss, it's alignment. It's how heaven teaches you that trust is stronger than control. You've held on for so long to plans, to people, to promises you thought you had to protect. You tried to fix what only faith could finish. But heaven is whispering now. What if your letting go is the very key to the door you've been knocking on? The moment you release control, the air changes. Suddenly, what was stuck begins to flow. It's as if the river within you, once blocked by stones of fear and worry, begins to move again quietly, powerfully, carrying you where you were always meant to go. You are learning that peace doesn't come from managing outcomes, but from trusting divine order. Letting go isn't abandoning your dreams, it's handing them back to their author. You're not losing what matters, you're making room for what's meant. The branch doesn't cling to the fruit once it's ripe. It lets it fall, trusting that the same tree that bore it will bloom again in season. So too will you. As the Apostle Paul wrote to the Philippians, chapter 4, verse 6, do not be anxious about anything, in every situation, by prayer and petition with thanks. Present requests to God. That is the language of release prayer, gratitude, and trust. You're not called to suppress emotion, you're called to surrender it. Every sigh, every whisper of God, I leave it in your hands, becomes incense rising before heaven's throne. The divine art of letting go is not passive. It's an act of faith that reshapes your entire energy. When you hold on too tightly, you limit heaven's creativity. But when you release, you invite divine artistry. Heaven paints with colors you didn't know existed: mercy, timing, and surprise. Think of a kite flying high against the sky. The tighter you pull the string, the more it struggles. But loosen your grip, and suddenly it catches the wind, rising higher than before. That's you, chosen one. You were never meant to fight the wind, you were meant to ride it. Letting go may feel like falling at first, but it's actually rising in disguise. Heaven's current is underneath you, catching every part of your surrender. The very thing you feared losing is often what heaven uses to lift you higher. And when that peace settles in, you'll know you didn't lose anything essential. What left was only what could no longer serve your destiny. You've been shedding layers, not losing life. The snake doesn't mourn the skin it outgrows. It simply moves forward, lighter, freer, stronger. Heaven is realigning your world now. Relationships, dreams, and desires are being filtered through divine intention. What remains after this release will be exactly what's meant to stay. No striving, no forcing, only flow. You've spent years building walls for protection, but heaven is teaching you that true safety is not in control, but in connection. When you release the need to control outcomes, you step into the rhythm of divine trust. You start to see life not as something to master, but as something sacred to move with. Letting go opens doors you never knew existed. It's like clearing dust from a window and finally seeing the light that was always shining outside. What you thought was darkness was simply clutter. Now, the light enters freely, and everything becomes clearer. This message itself, chosen one, is part of that flow. Heaven reaching through words to remind you that you're safe to release. And as you do, I ask something small but sacred in return. If this message touches your heart, consider liking, sharing, and subscribing, not out of obligation, but as a way of passing light forward. Every share is a seed, every like is a ripple. You never know whose midnight you might be lighting just by releasing this word into their feed. And if your spirit feels moved to give, to sow back into this stream of messages, do it as worship, not transaction. Giving is a form of letting go too, a way of saying, God, I trust you to multiply what I release. Just as a farmer releases seed into the soil, not knowing which one will bloom, you release your offering into heaven's current. Trusting it will find its appointed ground. Beloved, letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop carrying what was never yours to hold forever. It's the gentle surrender that turns chaos into clarity. You're learning the rhythm of divine rest. Inhale, faith. Exhale, control. And soon, you will see how everything you released returns, transformed, cleaner, purer, blessed. Heaven never takes without returning. You will stand lighter, freer, radiant in peace, knowing that everything that's truly yours will always find its way home. So, breathe, open your hands, let go and rise. You were never forgotten, chosen one, even in the silence. Even when heaven felt distant, and prayers seemed to echo into nothing, you were seen. Every moment of loneliness, every unanswered question, every night you whispered, "Lord, where are you?" Heaven heard. The absence you felt was not abandonment, it was incubation. The silence was the sound of preparation. Heaven's silence is never empty. It's filled with unseen movement. While you thought nothing was happening, God was rearranging everything, people, places, timing, aligning it all with precision. Like a master conductor, he was waiting for the exact moment to lift his hand and let the symphony play. You couldn't see it, but heaven was composing beauty from what felt like chaos. The hardest part of being chosen is surviving the seasons of divine quiet. Because when you carry destiny, you also carry delay. Not every seed sprouts immediately. Some must go through darkness before they can break open. And that's what you've been living through, the sacred stillness before the bloom. You mistook silence for disinterest. But heaven was simply teaching you trust. The same God who spoke galaxies into existence doesn't fall silent because he's forgotten. He falls silent because he's focused. And in those wordless stretches, he was writing answers not in sound, but in circumstance. Chosen one. You were never off heaven's radar. You were hidden in plain sight. Every time you said, "I don't see the way," heaven whispered, "I am the way." You didn't lose direction, you were being led differently. The quiet places weren't empty. They were full of unspoken love. As the prophet Isaiah wrote in the sacred text, chapter 49, verse 15, "Can a mother forget the baby at her breast and have no compassion on the child she has borne, though she may forget? I will not forget you." End of quote. That promise still stands. You were engraved in heaven's memory long before you were formed. Every detail of your journey is known. The waiting didn't erase your worth. It revealed your resilience. The hidden years built endurance for the weight of what's coming. You've been walking through shadows, but heaven's light never left you. It was simply working from within. You were learning to navigate not by sight, but by faith. That kind of faith cannot be taught by blessings. It is formed in the dark. The silence was not rejection, it was refinement. Heaven was teaching you the difference between needing answers and knowing the answer. You were being trained to recognize God's presence without visible proof, because the next season of your life will require that kind of trust that doesn't depend on evidence. You might have looked around and said, "Why them? Lord, why not me?" But heaven's timeline is not a race, it's a rhythm. Others may seem ahead, but they're running a different course. Heaven's delay is divine protection, not punishment. You were never behind, you were being perfected. You see, the silence created capacity. You had to be emptied of noise to hold the fullness that's coming. The longer the silence, the greater the sound that follows. Just as the ocean pulls back before a massive wave, heaven withdrew to prepare a greater release. What's approaching will make the wait worth every tear. Sometimes God hides you to protect you from premature exposure. You think you're ready, but heaven knows the weight of calling. It is not just blessing, it's burden. Only those who've walked through silence can carry the sound of heaven with humility. That's why you were hidden, to mature your power quietly, away from applause. Now the silence is beginning to break. You will start to feel small confirmations, unexpected peace, aligned encounters, moments that feel like déjà vu but are really divine timing catching up. The signs won't shout, they'll whisper. You'll recognize them by peace, not by pressure. Beloved, you've waited long enough to see this. The same silence that once frightened you will become your sanctuary. You will crave quiet, not because of absence, but because you've discovered that stillness is where heaven speaks loudest. The memory of being forgotten will fade, replaced by gratitude for being protected. You will realize that if God had answered earlier, you would have settled for less. Heaven's delay saved you from disappointment you didn't see coming. The silence trained your spirit to stand, your faith to breathe, and your heart to trust again. Now, when others panic in uncertainty, you will remain calm because you've already lived through the quiet and learned that heaven never leaves. Chosen one. The silence was never punishment. It was the cocoon before flight, the night before dawn, the inhale before declaration. And now, heaven exhales, releasing everything it prepared while you waited. The air feels different now, doesn't it? Chosen one, the stillness has shifted. You've endured the silence, survived the breaking, surrendered the burden, and now heaven begins to unveil your new assignment. This isn't a random opportunity or a sudden idea. This is the moment everything you've endured begins to make sense. Every trial has trained you for this calling. Heaven never wastes a pain, never forgets a prayer, and never loses a seed of obedience. Every lesson, every tear, every delay was a tool in the divine workshop, shaping the version of you that stands ready. Now, the new assignment is not something you have to chase, it's something that finds you when you're finally aligned. Heaven doesn't give missions to the restless, it gives them to the rested. Because when your soul is at peace, your actions become pure. You no longer move out of fear, but from faith. You no longer try to prove yourself, because you know who sent you. Your new assignment may not look like what you expected. It may come quietly, a conversation that shifts your direction, a door that opens with little effort, an inner prompting that won't let go. Pay attention to what stirs peace inside you. That's how heaven guides you now. The same God who spoke through burning bushes and parted seas now speaks through gentle nudges and divine timing. Heaven speaks through the prophet Jeremiah. Chapter 1, verse 5. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. And you may not preach from pulpits or stand before crowds, but your life will speak louder than any sermon. Your assignment is not about position, it's about presence. Heaven is calling you to walk as light in the spaces that need warmth, to carry peace into rooms filled with fear, to love in places where hearts have hardened. Every chosen one carries a unique flame, and yours is now burning steady, no longer flickering under the wind of doubt. Heaven is entrusting you with something new, not because you earned it, but because you endured what others couldn't. You proved faithful in the shadows. Now you'll carry authority in the light. This new assignment might feel unfamiliar at first. You'll feel a holy restlessness, not anxiety, but a deep stirring that says, "There's more." That's heaven, awakening your next chapter. You'll notice new ideas come alive. New opportunities align. New people cross your path. None of it is coincidence. Heaven never improvises, it orchestrates. But remember, with new assignments come new levels of discernment. Not every open door is yours to walk through. Heaven's assignments carry peace, not pressure. They multiply grace, not exhaustion. Listen carefully. The same peace that confirmed your surrender will confirm your direction. You might be tempted to shrink back, to say, "Lord, I'm not qualified." But heaven's reply is simple: you're chosen, not qualified. The strength you'll need will come as you move. The provision will meet you at obedience. Heaven never reveals the full map, only the next step. So take that step. Send that message. Start that project. Forgive that person. Bless that stranger. It may look small, but obedience always unlocks bigger doors. The same God who called you has already prepared the way before you. Every obstacle that tries to rise against this assignment will fall, because the order came from above. This is not the season to hesitate, it's the season to trust. Heaven is releasing fresh instruction, and the atmosphere around you is responding. The same favor that once seemed far is now walking beside you. You don't have to chase miracles, you will carry them. And as a prophetic act of readiness, type below 888. This number represents new beginnings and divine commissioning, the completion of one cycle and the birth of another. When you comment it, you're not performing a ritual. You're agreeing with heaven's next move. You're saying, "I'm ready to step into what's mine." La, heaven's plan is unfolding with precision. What you've prayed for is aligning with what you were born for. You won't have to force it, it will flow. You'll begin to walk in rooms where your spirit feels at home, not because you're comfortable, but because you're called. Your preparation is complete. Your purpose is awakening. Heaven has handed you the scroll, and your name is written across it. This is your moment of divine activation. Your new assignment begins now. There is a peace unlike any you have known before. Chosen one, not the fragile calm that depends on circumstances, but the unshakable serenity that flows from heaven itself. You've entered a new atmosphere now. The wars that once raged in your mind have gone quiet. Not because the world outside you changed, but because the world within you has. The storms that once terrified you no longer have authority, for heaven has clothed you in what Scripture calls the peace that surpasses all understanding. This is the mantle of peace, not a gentle covering that fades with emotion, but a divine armor that shields you from fear, anxiety, and confusion. It is heaven's reward for those who surrendered. It is what comes after the breaking, after the release, after the silence. You've been through the fires, and peace is the gold that emerged from the ashes. Peace is not passive. It's the most powerful stance a warrior can take. It doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop being controlled by what you can't change. The enemy cannot manipulate a heart anchored in peace. When fear knocks, peace answers the door and says, "You're too late. This territory is already occupied." The Book of Psalms, chapter 29, verse 11, declares, "The Lord gives strength to his people. The Lord blesses his people with peace." You see, peace is not a mood, it's a mark. Heaven marks you with peace, the same way kings are crowned with gold. It's the sign that you belong to a higher order, that your spirit has learned to rest even when your surroundings are restless. Before, your peace depended on stability. You needed assurance, closure, or validation to feel calm. But now, you carry an inner stillness that isn't tied to outcomes. That's divine maturity. Heaven has weaned you from external peace and taught you the language of internal rest. There is something sacred about this quiet strength. It doesn't shout. yet it commands respect. It doesn't chase, it attracts. You're learning that when you carry peace, you no longer have to fight for position. Situations begin to bend toward your calm. You are walking proof that still waters run deep. Think about the sea during a storm. On the surface, the waves rage and roar. But deep beneath, the ocean is still. That's what heaven has done in you, created depth. The surface of your life may ripple with challenges, but your spirit remains unshaken beneath. You've become too anchored to drift, too rooted to be uprooted, too peaceful to panic. This peace was not handed to you cheaply. It was forged in the furnace of chaos. You earned it through every sleepless night, every surrendered prayer, every act of trust when nothing made sense. Heaven saw how you chose stillness over striving, prayer over panic, faith over fear, and now the reward is here. Divine composure. This is the kind of peace that confuses darkness. The enemy doesn't know what to do with someone who refuses to react. The same situations that used to unsettle you now find no entry point. Your silence has become strategy. Your rest has become resistance. You are no longer a victim of circumstance. You are a vessel of calm. Peace doesn't mean you'll never face battles again. It means the battles no longer have the power to define you. You will walk through fire and not be burned. You will face storms and still sleep soundly in the boat, because you know who commands the winds. Heaven hasn't removed the waves, it has anchored your faith. You are beginning to notice it already. Conversations that used to trigger you no longer hold power. Memories that once stung now feel distant. Things that once drained, you now roll off like rain on armor. That's what happens when heaven places peace upon your shoulders. It changes how you move through the world. Beloved, this peace isn't just for you, it flows through you. Everywhere you go, the atmosphere will shift. Your calm will calm others. Your presence will speak louder than words. You will carry stillness into chaos, clarity into confusion, hope into heaviness. This is your new assignment in motion, not through effort, but through embodiment. You no longer need to chase joy or fight for balance. They're built into you now. Peace is your natural state, your divine inheritance. You've learned that stillness is not inactivity, it's mastery. Heaven trusts those who can stand quietly while the world shakes. You are walking into days where your peace will guard your promise. No storm will touch what heaven has crowned. No fear will undo what grace has built. You are covered, sealed, and secured. Rest easy. Chosen one, you've carried the chaos long enough. The mantle of peace now rests upon you, and nothing in this world can take it away. Your light has changed. Chosen one, it is no longer fragile, flickering, or unsure. It burns steady now, deep, warm, and unbothered by shadows. Heaven has strengthened it through every test you've endured. You once feared that your pain dimmed your glow, but in truth, it purified it. The darker your journey became, the brighter your spirit grew. That is the paradox of the chosen. Your light does not fade in darkness, it learns to command it. You may not realize it, but your very presence disrupts the plans of darkness. You walk into rooms and the atmosphere shifts, not because you speak, but because your spirit carries authority. You have been tempered like steel pressed, heated, shaped, and refined, and now your light is unyielding. Heaven didn't just restore you, It equipped you. You are no longer surviving the battle. You have become the weapon heaven wields. The Word of God in the Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 5 declares, "The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it." And you are the living embodiment of that truth. The light in you isn't ornamental, it's operational. It breaks chains, exposes lies, and awakens sleeping hearts. You are not merely illuminated, you are illumination. Heaven has entrusted you with brightness that doesn't depend on mood or circumstance, because your light flows from divine source, not human approval. Once, you used to shrink your glow, fearing you were too much for others. You silenced your voice to stay accepted, dimmed your spirit to stay liked. But heaven never called you to blend in, it called you to stand out. You were designed to reveal contrast, to be the difference in dull places, the spark in rooms that forgot what hope feels like. This light you carry terrifies darkness because it cannot be negotiated. Darkness thrives on confusion and compromise, but light moves with clarity and conviction. That's why opposition increased when you began to awaken. The resistance wasn't proof of failure, it was confirmation of radiance. Hell doesn't attack what isn't threatening. Now you understand that light is not loud, it's consistent. You don't have to prove anything anymore. You only have to remain. When you walk in truth, every lie unravels on its own. When you stand in peace, chaos loses its grip. Your light does not argue, it simply shines. And darkness must retreat. You've seen how people's reactions change around you. Some are drawn to your warmth, others recoil from it. That's the nature of divine radiance. It comforts the wounded, but exposes the hidden. You are not responsible for how others respond to your glow. You are only responsible for keeping it burning. The cost of carrying light is solitude. There will be moments when you walk alone. Not because you are unworthy of company, but because your frequency no longer matches the noise of the crowd. Don't mistake loneliness for isolation. Heaven often separates the luminous from the ordinary. Even stars exist in solitude, yet they illuminate entire skies. This light inside you isn't fragile, it's eternal. It doesn't need defending, only protecting. Guard your peace, your joy, and your faith as sacred flames. The enemy will try to use distraction, fatigue, or doubt to dim your focus. But you've learned how to guard your oil, how to pray in silence, how to rest in warfare, how to trust without seeing. That wisdom is what keeps your lamp burning when others fade. Beloved, you are now walking as a beacon. People who have been wandering in confusion will begin to find their way near you, not because you preach at them, but because your presence speaks a silent language. Heaven recognizes authenticity. Light doesn't convince, it attracts. Do not fear the darkness that still surrounds you. It's the stage for your purpose. A candle doesn't dread the night, it exists for it. Likewise, your life will now serve as guidance for those still trapped in shadows. You will not need to chase influence. It will find you through resonance. Heaven doesn't promote brightness for fame, but for impact. And as you continue to walk, your light will refine others. It will convict without condemning, heal without forcing, illuminate without blinding. This is how heaven changes the world, not with explosions of glory, but with steady souls who refuse to go out. Chosen one, your light terrifies darkness not because of its size, but because of its source. You are no longer afraid of your power. You are learning to live it humbly, boldly, faithfully. The same fire that once hurt you now fuels you. You've become what heaven always saw in you, a living flame, steady in the storm, unstoppable in love. Shine on, beloved. The darkness can no longer touch you. It can only witness your glow. Heaven's echo now flows through you. Chosen one, what once broke you now speaks through you. The words you release carry weight because they were born in fire. Your voice is no longer just sound, it's vibration, frequency, an echo of divine resonance traveling through time and space. Heaven has taken your pain and turned it into prophecy. You've become the living echo of grace. When you speak, the atmosphere remembers what you've survived. Every syllable carries oil. Every breath carries testimony. You were once the one crying out, "Lord, where are you?" Now, heaven answers through your voice to those asking the same. What you endured privately is now ministry publicly. Heaven wastes nothing. You see, when heaven echoes through a soul, it's not just about words, it's about vibration. The very tone of your presence now carries redemption. Your laughter, once silenced by grief, has become a melody of healing. Your tears, once seen as weakness, have turned to ink for heaven's messages. The story that once embarrassed you has become the anthem that liberates others. This is what heaven does. It turns broken instruments into symphonies. It takes ashes and composes beauty. You, chosen one, have become an instrument of divine sound. Every time you forgive, every time you bless instead of curse, every time you love instead of withdraw, heaven's echo grows stronger through you. Scripture says in the book of Isaiah, chapter 51, verse 16, "I have put my words in your mouth and covered you with the shadow of my hand." You were covered not for hiding, but for honing. Now, heaven's voice resonates through your speech, through your silence, through your very being. You don't need a pulpit, you are one. You don't need a microphone. Your spirit amplifies truth wherever you stand. And in this divine partnership, you are not just speaking, you are sowing. Every word, every act of kindness, every expression of faith becomes a seed that heaven multiplies in unseen soil. Somewhere, someone will hear your echo and awaken. Somewhere, a weary heart will find courage because you dared to speak peace into chaos. That's why this message exists, to keep that divine current flowing. And so, if these words reach you, if they stir something deep within, I invite you to help keep this echo alive. Like, share, and subscribe, not as routine gestures, but as ripples of light. Each time you share, you send another echo into the world, allowing heaven's voice to reach one more wandering soul. Imagine a candle in the dark. When one flame lights another, neither loses its glow. That's what happens when you share these words. Light multiplies without loss. It costs nothing but carries eternal value. And if you feel moved to donate, to support this flow of messages, you know that you are not paying for words, you are partnering with heaven to keep the sound alive. Every seed you sow becomes a note in this symphony of restoration. Heaven doesn't ask for much, only willingness. Just as rivers never drink their own water, this message doesn't exist for itself. It exists to pour out, to reach those who are still thirsty for hope. When you give, you become part of that river, part of heaven's echo washing across the earth. But beyond the gestures, beyond the giving, your real offering is presence. When you pause, reflect, and allow these words to change you, you fulfill heaven's intent. You become the echo, the continuation of the sound. The transformation within you will ripple outward, healing families, friendships, even strangers you'll never meet. That's how heaven works quietly, powerfully, exponentially. Your journey proves that nothing endured in love is ever lost. Every trial, every prayer, every lesson you've carried now becomes sound waves of strength vibrating through your existence. You no longer speak from theory, you speak from testimony. Your echo carries truth that cannot be silenced. So now, chosen one, heaven asks something simple yet profound. Let your life echo gratitude. Let it echo kindness. Let it echo faith, even when the world grows loud with fear. Your words may travel farther than you know. Somewhere, someone will breathe again because your echo reminded them of heaven's heartbeat. If this message touched your spirit, take a moment, not out of habit, but out of harmony, to comment below. Write your thoughts, your reflection, your yes to the call. Every comment becomes another vibration in this divine chorus. Proof that heaven's voice continues through human hearts. You are not just a listener, you are part of the sound. The echo of heaven moves through your life now, clear, strong, and unstoppable. And wherever your voice travels next, may it carry peace like thunder, wrapped in light. There comes a sacred threshold in every chosen one's journey, the moment of the final release. It is not a single act, but a slow, deliberate surrender. The kind that happens layer by layer, until nothing stands between you and the will of heaven. You've laid down your burdens, you've released your control, and you've trusted in ways that broke you open. But this, beloved, is deeper. This is the letting go of even the desire to understand. The final release is where faith becomes breathing, effortless, constant, unseen yet vital. You no longer bargain, no longer plead for signs or timing. You simply rest in the knowledge that everything unfolding is already holy. The storms that once shook you have become background music to your peace. Heaven has taken what once hurt and turned it into rhythm. It's strange, isn't it? How the more you release, the more whole you feel. You once believed that holding tightly meant safety, but now you see that freedom was always in the open hand. The divine paradox reveals itself. The emptier you become, the more you are filled. Heaven doesn't pour into clenched fists. It pours into open hearts. The final release is not about loss, it's about union. You're not giving something away. You're merging into something vast and eternal. You are becoming one with divine flow. Your will, once heavy and stubborn, now bends easily to divine rhythm. What once felt like sacrifice now feels like belonging. We are reminded in the book of Proverbs, chapter 3, verse 5, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not lean on your own understanding." That verse isn't a command to stop thinking. It's an invitation to rest from overthinking. It's heaven's way of saying, "Let me be God." You don't need to know every reason, every outcome, every why. You only need to walk in trust. The same God who held you in your breaking will guide you in your becoming. In the final release, time itself begins to lose its grip. You stop measuring life in hours or milestones. You begin to sense eternity within moments. Every breath becomes prayer. Every silence becomes communion. You find yourself moving slower, but deeper, noticing the way light filters through leaves, the way peace hums under your ribs. That is not distraction. That is awareness, the awareness of heaven inhabiting every detail. Letting go fully means allowing life to unfold without demanding control. You no longer wrestle with uncertainty because you've made peace with mystery. What once frustrated you, unanswered prayers, sudden detours, unexplainable endings now feels sacred. You begin to see how divine wisdom often hides behind human confusion. The story you once feared was falling apart was, all along, being written with exquisite care. This release also redefines love. You learn to love without ownership, to bless without expectation, to give without keeping score. Love stops being something you do and becomes something you are. Heaven's nature flows through you effortlessly. You stop asking, "How can I fix them?" and start whispering, "How can I reflect you?" Every disappointment, every loss, every heartbreak has been preparing you for this lightness. The chains you once wore were never locks. They were lessons. You no longer need them, and they fall away with ease. What remains is essence unburdened, radiant, whole. It's here, in this stillness, that heaven teaches you to rest in uncertainty as comfortably as you once rested in answers. You realize that the unknown is not your enemy. It's the canvas for divine creativity. Your trust becomes an offering, your peace a song, your surrender a sermon. There's no longer fear about what's next. You understand now that your role is not to predict outcomes, but to stay available. Heaven moves through those who are empty of resistance. And you, beloved, are empty, in the most beautiful way, emptied of fear, of force, of striving. The final release brings clarity. You can look back without regret, forward without anxiety, and inward without shame. Everything in your story, even the broken parts, feels purposeful now. You no longer wish to change your past because you see how it shaped your power. Every scar now glows with meaning. Heaven has your life in its hands, and you finally believe that's enough. You no longer ask, "What if I fall?" because you know you are already held. You don't beg for blessings, you notice them unfolding naturally. You are aligned, not because of effort, but because of surrender. This is the highest trust, when you can smile without reason, rest without answers, love without guarantee. This is the final release, to live fully while holding nothing tightly. Chosen one, you have reached the still point of destiny, where faith and peace meet in perfect balance. Heaven whispers softly over your soul, "It is finished," not your story, but your striving. End of. Heaven has taken over now. Chosen one. The battles you once fought in exhaustion are now fought on your behalf in silence. The road ahead doesn't require your striving, only your agreement. You've reached the point where surrender turns to sovereignty, where faith no longer feels like effort but existence. You walk differently now, lighter, steadier, certain of what you carry and who carries you. You can feel it in your bones, a stillness that was never there before. This isn't the fragile calm of temporary relief. It's the deep certainty of divine control. The same hands that shaped stars now guide your steps. You are not guessing your way forward. You are being led. Heaven has taken the map, and you are content to follow the compass of peace. Everything around you seems to flow in new rhythm. Where there used to be resistance, there is now grace. Where there used to be confusion, there is clarity. This is what happens when heaven takes over. Things align without explanation. The pieces that never fit before suddenly click into place. You realize now that divine order isn't something you build, it's something you rest into. The ancient promise spoken in the book of Psalms, chapter 37, verse 23 declares, "The steps of a good person are ordered by the Lord, and he delights in their way." You are walking in that delight. You can sense heaven's pleasure in your every movement. Not because you are flawless, but because you are faithful. You have learned the rare art of alignment, how to live without forcing, how to trust without proof, how to wait without fear. Heaven doesn't need your perfection. It celebrates your surrender. Look back for a moment. The journey that once felt unbearable now glows with meaning. The nights of silence, the seasons of breaking, the tears that watered the ground beneath you, they were never wasted. Each moment was an ingredient in the alchemy of your transformation. The person who once begged for answers has become the one who walks with assurance. The one who once asked for signs now is a sign proof that grace is real. This is what it means for heaven to take over. It's not about control leaving your hands, it's about trust filling your heart. You've shifted from doing to being, from carrying to floating. Life is no longer a problem to solve, it's a mystery to experience. And because you've released the need to understand, you finally understand peace. You can feel heaven's presence even in ordinary things now, in sunlight resting on your skin, in the sound of your own breath, in the quiet hum of existence. The divine has moved from theory to intimacy. It no longer feels out there, it lives within you. Heaven hasn't just taken over your circumstances, it has taken residence in your consciousness. This new life doesn't promise absence of struggle, but it guarantees absence of panic. Storms may still come, but they can no longer unsettle you. You've learned how to sleep in the boat because you know who commands the wind. You've learned how to stand in uncertainty and still radiate assurance. That is what it means to reign in peace, to know that everything that comes must first pass through heaven's permission. You're no longer trying to build your own kingdom. You've become part of one invisible, eternal, unshakable. You now live with the awareness that heaven moves through you, not just around you. Every word you speak, every action you take, carries residue of divine order. You're not striving to make an impact. Your very existence has become impact. Heaven's takeover feels like music without sound. It vibrates through your spirit, rearranging every fear into faith, every doubt into devotion. You no longer wake up wondering how things will work out. You wake up knowing they already are. What was once your question, "How will I make it?" has become heaven's answer, "You already have." You begin to notice a quiet authority rising inside. You no longer chase validation because truth itself walks beside you. You no longer fear endings because you've seen how every ending births renewal. Heaven has rewritten your rhythm. Your pulse beats with purpose now, steady and strong. This is the fullness of surrender, when nothing outside can shake what's established within. You've become anchored, rooted, and radiant. The same peace that once visited you now lives in you permanently. Heaven has not just taken over your path, it has claimed your perspective. You see differently now, life not as a battlefield, but as a blessing. People not as obstacles, but as mirrors. Time not as limitation, but as unfolding grace. You walk with heaven's authority, speak with heaven's tone, love with heaven's heart. You are not waiting for divine takeover, you are the evidence of it. And now, as you step forward into whatever awaits, remember this truth. What God begins, He sustains. What heaven touches, it transforms. You are proof that surrender doesn't end in loss, it ends in divine partnership. The story isn't over. It has only just begun, written by heaven, lived through you. Heaven has spoken. Chosen one, and now, all that remains is peace. You have walked through the fire and come out shining. You have wrestled with silence and found your voice in stillness. You have surrendered, and in doing so, discovered strength no storm can steal. This is the moment where your story becomes someone else's survival guide, where your breakthrough becomes another soul's beacon. If this message has stirred something within you, let it continue its journey. Like, share, and subscribe, not as routine clicks, but as gentle waves of light extending beyond you. Every share is another candle lit in a dark room. Every comment, another echo of faith that says, I'm part of this divine story too. Take a breath and leave your reflection below a word, a line, a prayer. You never know who will find healing in what you release. Together, we amplify heaven's voice across the earth, one echo at a time. So, beloved, keep shining, keep trusting, and keep walking in the calm of surrender. Heaven has taken it from here, and all that's left for you to do is live